utilizing any threat, rendering aid, and setting up a crime scene. And when he gets there, you'll learn, in addition to Officer Grove and Will Sheffey's car, who else is there? Brent Adams and Jeffrey Lee. Lieutenant Slocum sees another officer talking with Jeffrey Lee. Appears to be a calm situation. You see, he sees Officer Sidiora talking to an individual who appears to be injured. His attention is drawn for a moment because he received word or radio dispatch on the way that a second party was injured. And then he sees Officer Fowler, Brent Adams. And Brent Adams goes and lays on the sidewalk. Lieutenant Slocum is drawn to that. He walks over there, and as he does so, Brent Adams dives back into the car to help. The car rolls forward. Officers stop that. Lieutenant Slocum directs Officer Grove to detain, remove Brent Adams. We'll hear Lieutenant Slocum's description of the demeanor of Brent Adams and his officer. It's a highly charged situation at that point. And you will hear how he first isolates the boundaries of the crime scene. He extends those boundaries out a couple of times as he's gathering information. People are gathering on the outside of that crime scene tape. They have to move it back. News organizations are arriving. They're locating evidence they want to preserve. They're taping that off. He's calling in the Detective Bureau. He's requesting all available officers. He requests mutual aid from the Ohio State Highway Patrol. The crime scene is taking shape at this point, ladies and gentlemen. He's securing that. So they can investigate this and find out what caused the death of Will Sheffey. And he learns in that process that Juan Padilla Reynoso was injured. He dispatches another officer to go speak with him. He's taken to the fire department. And then at some point during the evening, he learns of victim Alejandro Gonzalez Ramirez, as he is reported to the hospital because he suffered a wound to his neck as a result of a bullet coming through his windshield and lodging in his neck. He secures that crime scene roughly by 8:15. So within 15 minutes, he has assessed the situation, secured it, and is in the process of preserving any evidence there is and determining all injured parties. Lieutenant Matt Tydecast from the Hazel Police Department arrives. He's the detective in charge, and the handoff occurs at that point, ladies and gentlemen. Just prior to that, Lieutenant Slocum calls for BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigation, to process the crime scene. Again, this is the incident was under 3 minutes, 2 minutes. The processing of the crime scene began at a little after 8 and concluded in in the early morning hours of June 8, 2025. From the evidence, what you'll be able to see, what they gathered, in excess of 40 shell casings, a firearm that was sent to Brent Adams, they accomplished numerous scans, took many pictures, spoke to the coroner. The coroner came. And later that evening, Lieutenant Slocum, with the Lake County coroner, Dr. T, spoke with Tiffany Phillips, Will Sheffey's mom. And with a photograph, they were able to ID, or positively ID, that the young man who loved life, enjoyed music, liked girls, was happy, I said earlier, the evidence will consist of various witnesses. Not just the witnesses that personally know the defendant or will, but you're going to hear from law enforcement witnesses, much like I've described with respect to the Painesville officers, but also from DCI. You will hear about the processing of their scene. You will hear from Dr. Allison Krywonsik, who performed the autopsy on Will Sheffey. And you will learn that he died from a single gunshot wound to the head, front to back, left to right, slightly downward anatomically. And you will hear from Dr. Keith that when he received her autopsy report and her cause of death, he ruled it a homicide. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence will show you on June 7th of 2025 Avion Gaines was of one mind with his family. He wasn't the trigger man. He was a blocking guy. He was a get him in a line of fire guy. He shared the purpose, and the evidence will tell you so. At the conclusion of the case, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to ask you to consider a number of charges. The judge has already outlined those for you. There's 14 in all. A summary of them would be complicity to aggravated murder, complicity to murder, murder, I mean, times 6, uncharged alternative, complicity to felonious assault, 1 death, 1 bullet, 1 young man, Will Sheffey, are the subject of the murder counts. Will Sheffey is also the subject of 2 of the kidnapping counts. Brent Adams, 2, Jeffrey Lee, 2. Brent Adams and Jeffrey Lee are subject of the complicity to felonious assault, and Juan and Alejandro. When you consider the state's evidence and apply the judge's instructions to those charges, it will be clear to you the defendant is guilty. And we will ask you to render a verdict on the court.
Thank you. Superintendent.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Melozit. Good morning. Once again, my name is Mary Catherine Corrigan, and it is my honor and privilege to be here with all of you this week, representing Avion Gaines. On behalf of Avion and myself, we want to say thank you. We are extremely certain that we picked the right jury to hear this case. You will see in the next couple of days that the tone of the room has changed since yesterday. It is extremely serious and somber. As we discussed yesterday, this is the most important of Avion Gaines' affairs for likely his entire life. And we expect that for the next 2 weeks it will be the most important of your affairs. And we thank you energy and attention. Much of this case is going to be uncontested. WYLLYAM SHEFFEY is dead. We don't contest that. WYLLYAM SHEFFEY's death is an absolute tragedy. WYLLYAM SHEFFEY is the victim of gun violence in the young community. He deserved more than the abbreviated life he got. They deserved more than the abbreviated life with Will that they got. He deserved to have holidays with his family. He deserved to watch his mother grow old. He deserved to get married. He deserved to be a father. He deserved to continue to make music. Will Sheffey deserved more than a gunshot to the head. And Avion knows that. I know that. You all know that. It is not contested. What is contested is whether or not Avion Gaines was complicit in this tragedy. Will Sheffey, the state of Ohio stood here in Voir Dire yesterday and talked to you about lifestyle choices and rap music, as though Avion and I are some sort of monsters that are going to tell you that because Will liked rap, he deserved to get killed. That isn't the case. Will deserves to be here. Will deserves to be in this community. He deserves to have grown old. Avion simply had nothing to do with his death. Avion and I are heartbroken that Will Sheffey is dead. We simply do not think that Avion Gaines is guilty of this homicide, even under a complicity theory. Much of the evidence in this case is going to be uncontested. As the state just outlined, you're going to hear from scientists and doctors. Will Sheffey died of a homicide. We agree. We just don't think Avion was complicit in the homicide. Will Sheffey died, and there will be scientific evidence that you're going to hear upon. You might not even hear me cross-examine them, because the fact that this is a tragedy and the fact that this was a homicide is not in question in this case. It is simply that Avion is not guilty. You cannot look at this case in a vacuum. You will hear that there has been a history between these parties, not solely revolving Ayla Oberstar, but a history between these boys. And you will hear that throughout that day, there were multiple calls that went both ways. They were, as people say, beefing. You will hear that, and you will see that these cars kind of circle each other throughout the day, going behind people. Will Sheffey is leading the almost caravan. At different points throughout the day, the caravan ends. Will Sheffey is engaging. That doesn't mean Will Sheffey deserves to be dead. Doesn't make his death less of a tragedy, but it's context you deserve to know. Will Sheffey is engaging with Aviante Atterbury, who you will hear is my client's brother. Will Sheffey is engaging with Avion. Will Sheffey and Avion are having conversations about Ayla Oberstar. You will hear that my client has a history of teenage romance and love with Ayla Oberstar, but that was long over and he had moved on. You will hear that at some point during the day, Will Sheffey says, come to Rainforest Village. Will Sheffey entices these people to come to an apartment complex called Rainforest Village. And my client thinks they're going to fight. He thinks after